Hey guys, Gimme Gold Gamer here. Today I wanted to announce this tournament. It's the Trick Magic Tournament. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a singles online tournament in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Sign-ups actually already started here on October 23rd, and they're going to run until November 25th. The actual tournament, though, it starts a week from today here, so November 3rd, Friday, next week. And it's going to run until Sunday, and it's only going to allow for the Ghost-type Pokemon that are Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And then I think that doesn't include Box Legendaries, so no Giratina. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think today I want to just plan a little bit for this, talk about my thoughts on what I think is going to be really good for this tournament, and then also start working on building my team for this as well. So without any further ado, let's hop into Pokemon Showdown. Now, before we actually start working on making our team here in Pokemon Showdown, I actually thought it'd be fun to do a tier list here to talk about some of the Pokemon that we're going to be running into and kind of like what they're going to have, what kind of moves they're going to have, why I think they're going to be good. So I just found this random 2023 Ghost-type Pokemon tier list here. I know it's going to have some of the Pokemon that are in Scarlet and Violet, but I thought it'd be a good place to start just to kind of organize some of our thoughts before we start working on our team here. So obviously we can put Gemighoul and Gemighoul chest form at the top here because we know he's the best Ghost-type Pokemon. But besides that, I think that something that's going to stand out to me a lot, it's going to be such an interesting tournament because Ghost-type Pokemon are weak to other Ghost-type Pokemon. It's going to really make us rethink how we're gonna have to handle some of these Pokemon, some of these threats. So I think that a lot of Pokemon that would be really, really good, like the Basculegion, aren't going to be as good in this format just because of those weaknesses, because every Pokemon in this tournament is pretty much going to be running Ghost-type moves, right? I also think Terra Normal is going to be super, super common, and as I'm making this tier list, I kind of want to do it under the lens of that, like what it's going to be like for this tournament. So with that in mind, the first Pokemon I want to talk about is actually Hisui and Zoroark, because you're going to have that immunity with the normal typing. It's going to be so, so good. We have him up here. So I'm going to put him in A tier. Just having that immunity to Ghost-type moves right off the bat and be able to disguise yourself as a Ghost-type Pokemon that's going to be weak to other Ghost-type moves is going to be so, so good. I definitely think a lot of people are going to be running this Pokemon, like pretty much any good team is going to be running this Pokemon, just because of that level of deception, because that first turn you really don't know if you're going to be going up against the Zoroark or not, and that's going to make things very, very difficult for us. In addition to the Zoroark, I think that Dragapult's also going to be super good just because of that speed tier. Being the fastest Ghost-type Pokemon is going to give you a huge edge over a lot of these other Mons, and also having that high base stat total too is going to be really good. You don't actually have any good physical Ghost-type options. The only thing you have is the, what's it called? The Phantom Force, that's what it is. Oh my goodness. Now, you do have Sucker Punch, though, which is a very good priority option, and Dark-type moves, I think, are going to be another really, really good option against most of these Pokemon here. There's only going to be a few Pokemon that can actually handle the Dark-type moves pretty well. And the Dark-type moves is also going to be really, really good against the Hisui and Zoroark, too, because that's going to be its only weakness, right? So I definitely think the Dragapult has a lot of promise here. I might even be inclined to use Scarf Dragapult just to outspeed other Dragapult, even with the Sucker Punch. Just so that we're making sure that we're getting that outspeed and getting that damage, because I think that's going to be huge. It's going to be a game of speed in this tournament. Another Pokemon that stands out to me just because of the speed is Fluttermane. We've seen this thing be a huge threat in a lot of the Scarlet and Violet metagames since this thing got released, and this thing is awesome. It has so much special attacks, so much speed, and then also be able to run the booster energy and have that freedom with your moves while still having that speed, that Choice Scarf speed is going to be so, so nice on the Fluttermane. So I think this is going to be another huge threat here. Obviously, you're going to be very weak on the physical side, and there's going to be a lot of Pokemon running Shadow Sneak to try to get those outspeeds with that priority and just find those easy KOs, but I still think that Pokemon's going to be a really good threat regardless. Another one that stands out to me as being very, very strong is going to be the... Where is he? The Skeledirge. And the reason for that being... we're going to put him at A- right now. And the reason for that being is when I think of Skeledirge, this thing hasn't been another huge threat, and when I think of counters for Skeledirge, I don't necessarily think of other Ghost-type Pokemon. This Pokemon really appreciates the Terra Normal already. It's going to be a very bulky Pokemon, and with that unaware, you're going to be able to ignore a lot of your opponent's stat changes, and I think a lot of people are going to be relying on that. Then maybe relying on Sword Stance to set up, or relying on Calm Mind, and this Pokemon's going to ignore all that, and then be able to Terra to a really good neutral typing. You might see a few people running Fighting type tech just to handle people going Terra Normal because it's going to be so common, but it's kind of scary to try to run that fighting type tech when most of these Pokemon are going to be immune to it, right? Unless they Terastallize. So I think that Skeledirge definitely has a lot of promise. I don't think it's going to be the strongest thing per se, but it's definitely one that you can't neglect, or it's going to put a lot of pressure on your team, and it's going to be a really, really hard threat to deal with. So I'm going to put him in A- for now. We may change that around later. The other one I was thinking of was Mimikyu, and I'm going to put Mimikyu up in A tier for right now for a few reasons. Having that disguise ability when every Pokemon's going to be weak to super effective Ghost type moves outside of a few select Pokemon is going to be huge. Being able to bait them out and be able to read what kind of set they're running is going to be really, really valuable. You also have Shadow Sneak, and you're one of the best Shadow Sneak users, so maybe set up Mimikyu is going to be really, really good with the Swords Dance and be able to go Shadow Sneak with that priority and just do massive amounts of damage. So I just definitely think that this Pokemon is going to be a huge, huge threat. It's going to be very, very common in this tournament, so I'm going to put him up in A tier for now. Now, as far as other Pokemon that can handle Ghost-type moves, it's pretty much going to be Spiritomb and Sableye. So I'm going to put those next to one another. Oh, did I just swap them? I did. I think I want to just put them both. I think I'm going to put them both in B+ for now. And that's just because they're typing, just having that neutral typing without having to do any terrestrialization or run any berries that are going to help you with super effective hits is going to be really, really good here. So, there's a Spiritomb, there he is. And so, I definitely think these Pokemon are going to be very common. I think a lot of people are going to be running them just because of that dark typing too. Now, Fluttermane's going to be another really common one just because of its speed, and being able to put that pressure with the fairy type moves on these Pokemon is going to be really good too, which is why I didn't put them a little bit higher. I really like the Prankster on the Sableye. I'm very much considering using Sableye. I just don't know if I want to use it quite yet. I've been looking at the movesets and I just haven't found anything that's really just screaming that it's something I want to use. So. And then another big threat I want to talk about here is going to be Golden Go, just because I think that Golden Go is going to have, there's going to be a lot of status in this tournament, right? There's going to be a lot of status. People are going to want to be dropping Thunder Waves with the Ghost type Pokemon and just find that speed where you wouldn't otherwise have it, rely on those hacks, and being able to be immune to all that is going to be awesome. Golden Go also really appreciates the normal typing, and that's going to give him some really, really good matchups. It's going to be a really hard Pokemon to deal with. It's also just got some really good coverage too, and it's going to be a huge threat against Fluttermane unless you're teching something for Fluttermane. I'm personally leaning on the frame of mind that I want to run Fluttermane as a counter to Golden Go with like a Terra Fire type and maybe running Mystical Fire or something of that vein. But I definitely think it's going to be a big threat here. I think I'm going to put him up with Skeledirge just because its ability, again, is going to be so good. It's going to be really, really hard to play around, and you're definitely going to want to bring a threat to be able to handle the Golden Goal. It's something that you definitely can't neglect with this tournament, as I think some of these other Pokemon, it's going to be easier just to kind of ignore with the kind of tech you're running if you're running a lot of fast speed or priority moves, just kind of playing around with what you're going to see here. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is Spectrier. So, Spectrier has a really good speed stat. It's got a 130 base speed stat. It's got a massive special attack stat. And it also really appreciates those dark type moves too. It's got Dark Pulse. It's got Snarl. I think Snarl is going to be really good against the Skeledirge since it's going to be able to ignore your stat changes, but you can lower its special attack to kind of make it a lot weaker Pokemon. I really am of the frame of mind. I think Spectrier going Terra Dark in this tournament is going to be super, super good with those dark type moves. Do I want to put it in A tier? I think I'm going to put Spectrier in A- just because of that speed tier, because it's going to get outsped by the Dragapult, it's going to get outsped by the Fluttermane, and there's going to be a lot of priority. There's going to be a lot of Shadow Sneak, right, and maybe some Sucker Punch. So I'm going to put it in A-, but it's definitely going to be another huge threat. It's one that you're going to need to be able to bring counters for, have an answer to, and be aware of. I think Terra Normal and Terra Dark are both going to be really, really scary on this Pokemon. And with its Grimnay ability, you do not want that thing getting a special attack boost and being able to go from there. It's just going to be able to sweep you very, very easily with that high special attack, and it's one that you can't ignore. So going from here, okay, there's one more I think I'm going to talk about first, and we'll just start kind of going down the list with the ones that are in Scarlet and Violet. So Ceruledge is going to be another really, really good one. Ceruledge really appreciates the Focus Sash, and it's got that weak armor ability, so if you can find yourself in a physical matchup, I think being able to rely on the weak armor and then find those outspeeds, being able to set up a Swords Dance, and then use that Shadow Sneak after is going to be really deadly. It's also going to have the Destiny Bond too, which is going to be really annoying to play around. So if you happen to go up a Focus Sash Ceruledge and it happens to get that speed boost, then it might be able to go 2 for 1, which is going to be super, super annoying. Now, weak armor will only ever proc if it gets hit with a physical move. So the best way to handle Ceruledge is going to be using special attacks. But that could get kind of scary. I think Ceruledge with the Hisuian Zoroark is going to be really scary in any one of these Pokemon, honestly. You're not going to want to throw out a status on Golden Go, so if Hisuian Zoroark is disguising itself as the Golden Go, that's going to be really annoying. With Mimikyu, you're going to try to break through that disguise. With some of the other ones, so they're going to be super fast. And then you have Skeledirge is unaware. I do think that just because this hitting has so much tech and it has the ability to be really, really good against other ghost types, I'm also going to put an A- for now. Actually, I don't see it being quite as good. I'm going to put in B+. I'm going to put in B+ with these other ones here. Just because I think that these have a little bit more of a threat that you need to worry about, and the Skeledirge, or the Ceruledge is a lot easier to play around. We might see some Eviolite. Oh my gosh, Mismagius. Or Misdrevius, sorry. Mismagius is the evolution here, but because it would have to go Terra just to be good defensively, I don't think that's going to be very good. So I'm going to put it all the way down in C tier. We'll put it in D tier. Bayonet is going to have the Frisk. It's also going to have Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch, which I think makes this thing a little bit more viable. But outside of that, it's not very strong. It's going to be able to get swept by Ghost-type Pokemon fairly easily. I think that Focus Sash could be a really good option on it, because you might just be able to go 2. Like one for 1+, sorry. I also think it gets the knockoff too, which could be very, very good. I think that leading with a knockoff, in case they're running the Hisuian Zoroark, is going to be a really, really good option in this tournament. So I think I'll go ahead and put him in B tier for now, just because some of those moves that it gets access to. Now, Dusclops, again, with the Eviolite being defensive, but in this tournament you're going to have to go Terra. I don't think it has good offensive options to deal with a lot of Pokemon. It's a little bit better than the Misdrevius, so I'm going to put him in C tier, but not very good. Now, Mismagius, I think you have a decent speed tier. What do you have for your speed for Mismagius? Let's go ahead and check this right now. Mismagius. 105, so you're slower than Gengar, which I think puts you at a huge disadvantage. And when you want to be a fast sweeping Pokemon, there's so many other options. There's going to be a lot of priority. I think this thing's also going to be really, really bad. So I'm actually going to put it all the way down in C tier. Dusknoir has only base 100 physical attack. It tries to really rely on its natural bulk. I think if it had a higher physical attack, this thing could be a huge threat. It's also going to get the Poltergeist, which is going to do a lot of damage. But unfortunately, it doesn't generate enough power to make this thing good, which is why I think this is actually also going to be a very low tier Pokemon. I almost think that the Dusclops is going to be a little better. But you do have that Shadow Sneak, so I'm going to put it in the same tier. I think that kind of offsets it a little bit. Now, Sinistea, whatever this one is. Poltergeist. Oh my gosh, I cannot think of these Pokemon names today. I think the Poltergeist has the potential to be pretty good. If you're running it with a berry to make you take super effective hits, not as effective, it could set up a Shell Smash and be able to sweep with its offensive pressure. So I actually think this is going to be another one that could be a little bit of a hidden threat. I don't personally want to run this, but it's definitely one that you can't disregard, because I think that with the right item, this thing could be very, very good in this tournament. I'm going to go ahead and put it in B tier, because I think it's pretty on par with a lot of these other Pokemon. You have to respect it, but I don't think it's so game-defying that you need to bring a direct counter to be able to handle this in this tournament. So Gengar is going to have a decent speed tier. Gengar really likes to run Focus Sash, and Gengar likes to use like Destiny Bond and do some cheese with Hypnosis and some other really goofy things. What I want to know is, does Gengar get access to the Mirror Coats in this generation? It does not. So that's a little bit of a bummer. It's going to make this Pokemon a little bit weaker. I am tempted to put Gengar in with Bayonet, again, because you have some good things against this, what you're going to see in this tournament, but because he likes to be a fast sweeper Pokemon, we have so many faster options with priority. I think this just isn't going to be that great. I think it's going to be a pretty good Focus Sash user, but there's just going to be better options, so I'm going to put it in B tier here. I think for Houndstone, what do I want to put Houndstone in? Houndstone really relies on Last Respects, and Last Respects could be good if you could get that speed up, but it's pretty much going to need to rely on Sand Rush to even be good, and it's going to be kind of hard to set up Sand in this tournament, and I think it would also have to rely on its Terror type. You don't have great coverage outside of that for going up against some of these defensive Pokemon that are going to Terrasilize, maybe go Terra Normal or Terra Dark or whatever it may be. So I don't think it's going to be so great, and it's not very fast naturally. I'm actually going to put it all the way down in C tier, just because I think all these other Pokemon are going to be much better in this tournament. It's got some decent tech. You have to definitely have some respect for what it can do, but for the most part, I just don't see it being very good. We could do Haunter. We could do Haunter too, because Haunter is actually still pretty viable on top of Gengar with that Levitate ability. That could be kind of nice. But I don't think Haunter's good enough to even really mention for this tournament, so I'm just going to kind of pass over him. Drifblim. So this is an interesting one. I think that it potentially could be very good, again, with one of those berries to help reduce the damage from super effective hits. I think that being able to baton pass the minimize, be able to get stockpiles and stuff and pass it on to another user, that could be really good. That has some potential. That has some potential to be kind of sneaky. I think I'm going to put it up with Bayonet here. Just it has some sneaky tech. It could be good in this tournament. I definitely would consider running it. But it's not so good that I think you need to have a dedicated counter to it. And again, Skeletor, to be able to go Terra Normal, having that unaware ability to just ignore those stat changes kind of makes this Pokemon not nearly as good as it potentially could be in past gens, right? So Chandelure, phenomenal ghost type Pokemon, massive special attack, but again, when speed's going to come into play here, when you're going to have those weaknesses, you're going to have to go Terra just to make this thing viable. You're going to be so much slower than other Pokemon, you don't really have good priority options, so I'm going to put this thing all the way down in C tier. The Trevenant, I think the Trevenant really relies on finding matchups, again, where it's not going to be really weak, doesn't want to get knocked off with the berry, really likes relying on that harvest. So I think it's, in this tournament, it's not going to be the most viable. It could go Terra Normal and do some pretty cool stuff. I'll put in C tier for now, but I don't think it's going to be anything super phenomenal. Is Gourgeist even in the game right now? I don't think it is. No, okay. So, Oricorio could be a really interesting one. I think you have some cool setup moves. Its stats aren't great. Let's take a look at Oricorio really fast. Oricorio. So some pretty weak stats overall. Decent speed tier, decent special attack if you can go Quiver Dance. That could be pretty threatening. That could be pretty threatening here. And what's that dance move? That Revelation Dance. That changes with your Terror type. So that could potentially be pretty nifty if you went like Terra Dark, just to try to get some resist on the ghost type moves and then find some decent coverage. That has some potential. I think I'm going to put it up in B tier, just because I don't think it's anything broken, but I think it has some potential to find its niche in this tournament. So Sandygast is in the game, I believe, right? Sandygast, yeah. What is this evolution called? I'm gonna piss off so many people that love ghost type Pokemon. Palossand. Palossand, that's what it is. So it's got some decent defensive stats, pretty low special defense with that 85 hit points. Could be good sand partner. Could be a good sand partner with the Houndstone if you want to do something fun like that. But overall, I think this Pokemon just doesn't have a whole lot to make this threatening in this tournament. So I'm going to put it down in C tier. The Typhlosion. Typhlosion's good. It's good in the normal metagame. If you can go Choice Scarf and go Eruption, you just find some massive damage. But I think in this tournament, it's not going to be anything special. There's going to be a lot of Pokemon that outspeed it, that just put a lot of pressure on it. So I'm also going to put this guy down in C tier as well. The Decidueye. Decidueye has access to some pretty good moves. Let's look them up really fast, too. You do have access to the Shadow Sneak. I used to use this guy a little bit in Sword and Shield. So decent attack, decent natural bulk overall, especially on the special side. So you have Sword Stance. You do have Sword Stance and Shadow Sneak, which could be pretty good. Do you get Roost as well? You get Roost. So you get some sustain if you're going to go Terra on this Pokemon. That could be potentially pretty good. You have Knockoff. Okay, yeah, I think this Pokemon actually has some pretty decent tech in this tournament. It's a very, very slow Pokemon, which I think holds us back a little bit. It's going to be relying... Do you have Sucker Punch? I don't think you would get the Sucker Punch. You do get the Sucker Punch. All right. Decidueye might actually be a little bit of a hidden threat here. I think I'm going to actually put Decidueye up in B tier, just because it gets all those moves. I think that's going to give it some really good tech. If you wanted to go Terra Normal and just go all in with the Decidueye, that could be really, really threatening. And I could also see that going really good with the Driftblood if you were able to baton pass some good stats into the Decidueye and just kind of go all in with that. That could be very, very good. So... Who else? The Rotom is going to the D tier. I don't think it's going to be good at all. I think that the Frostlass has some potential to do some cool stuff. It's got a decent speed tier. What speed tier are we dealing with the Frostlass? So 110. So same as Gengar here. It's pretty much going to play a lot like Gengar actually has the Curse Body. It's probably going to want that Focus Sash because you have fairly weak defensive stats right here. So I don't think this Pokemon does a whole lot outside of just being a Destiny Bond user. You can run some status. Thunder Wave might be kind of nice. You might be able to switcheroo something, get a Pokemon locked into a move it doesn't want to be into. But all in all, I think that Gengar is actually going to be a little bit better than this. So I'm going to put it... It's about the same as Gengar. We're going to put it in B tier. Where are you, Frostlass? It's going into C tier. I changed my mind. So, who else have we not talked about yet? Basculegion. That's going to be a big one. So, Basculegion's been a huge threat right now in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Battle Stadium singles, but I think that in this metagame, it's going to be so predictable that it's going to want to use the Last Respects just like the Houndstone. It's going to be a little bit better than the Houndstone. You have a little bit better of a speed tier, but if you're going to waste your Choice Scarf on that when speed's going to play such a big role into this, and then you don't want to get locked into a move too and just kind of struggle from there. I think that it's going to be able to be burned. I think it's going to see a decent amount of Will-O-Wisp here just to kind of handle some of these physical threats. And it definitely doesn't want the Thunder Wave. I think it's a little bit better than the Houndstone. It's going to be a little bit easier to set up Rain if you want to run Swift Swim. And that's going to do some massive damage if you have him in the bag. It's definitely one you can't ignore. I think I'm going to put him in B tier just because it's a little bit better than the Houndstone, I think, for this tournament. Annihilate is generally a pretty good Pokemon because you're able to just soak in some of those hits, and then Rage Fist does so much damage. It's kind of annoying with the taunt. It's got a pretty decent speed tier against slower Pokemon, so you can kind of force Pokemon into hitting you for damage and kind of be able to set up from there. But when we're talking about a tournament of just all Ghost-type Pokemon, where most Pokemon are going to have super effective hits, it's going to have to Terra. It has some potential, but I think you have like a perfect immunity to the fighting, to its stab coverage, right, with the Hisuian Zoroark. And that really holds this Pokemon back a lot. I don't think it's going to be so incredible that you have to worry too much about it. I think there's going to be a lot of Pokemon that are going to be able to handle it fairly well. Where do I want to put him? I think I'm going to put him in B tier as well, just because I think in this tournament he doesn't do super, super stellar. Bramblegrass is a pretty interesting one, but again, I think you're going to have to Terrasilize just to make this thing good. I think you've got a decent speed tier on the Bramblegrass here. We'll open up a new tab and Regulation E, Brambleghast. So you have the Wind Rider ability. Do you have Tailwind? No, so you can't set up Tailwind like Shiftry. So Infiltrator is going to be the ability you're probably going to want to run on this. You can set up a Curse. Your defensive stats aren't great, though. That's a super low hit point stat with those kind of defenses. And 90 is not great either. So even with that high attack stat, you do have the Shadow Sneak. So that's something at least. What other moves do you have? Strength Sap. Yeah, I don't think this thing's going to be good enough in a tournament of all Ghost-type Pokemon to really be that viable. So I'm going to put him all the way down in C tier. And who else have we not talked about? I think that's just about it for the Pokemon here for this tournament. So Now we have this as just kind of a reference sheet so that we can look back to this as we're trying to set up our team. I think that as much as I'd love to run the Gimmickle, I think he's too good to lower himself down to the level of just playing in a tournament like this. So I think we're going to look at the other Pokemon here. I think that we want to definitely use Hisui and Zoroark. Let's start working on making our team now. So what are the Pokemon I know I want to use? Regulation E. Hisui and Zoroark. Zoroark there. And I think I am also definitely going to want Mimikyu for sure, because that disguise ability is going to be so good. Mimikyu. And we are going to want Fluttermane. I think Fluttermane with the booster energy is going to be really, really awesome. I also think that it's going to be a good counter to Golden Go, because there's going to be a lot of Golden Go just because this Pokemon's been so high up on the usage that I definitely think it's one you can't neglect. And being able to terrestrialize with the Fluttermane here, being able to go Calm Mind, that's going to be good against other Fluttermane. It's going to be good against Golden Go. It's going to be pretty decent against any other special attacking Pokemon in this tournament. So I think I do want to run the Fluttermane here with the booster energy. Just having that speed tier is going to be so nice. So I definitely for sure want the Fluttermane on my team. And then same thing for Dragapult. You have such a high speed stat that I think it's almost necessary in this tournament with that Sucker Punch. I think it's going to do really, really well. So I'm also going to throw the Dragapult on this team for this tournament. From here, we have two more slots for Pokemon, then we'll start worrying about what moves we're going to be running on this, and this is where things get a little bit tricky. So if I wanted any other Pokemon on my team to be able to resist Ghost types right off the bat, it would be one of these two guys. That could potentially be pretty good for us. The other nice thing about that is they're not weak to Dark-type moves. Dark-type moves are going to be neutral, so that could be pretty good with the Hisui and Zoroark to start off the bat. I think if I was going to choose between one of these two, I think having the Prankster and just having that speed to back us up is probably going to be a little bit better. Spiritomb does have Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak, though, which could be very, very good. Spiritomb, I believe it still gets access to both those moves. Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak. That could definitely change my mind on some things. How do I want to do this? You get Toxic too, which is kind of cool. Stored power. Ooh. I don't know. Sableye has such weak stats, and I think a lot of people are going to be expecting the Sableye. How to do this? You know what? I think because we have both of these moves, what's her stats looking like? Yeah, pretty good defensively here. You know what? I'm actually kind of leaning towards the Spiritomb just because we have access to both those moves. I think that's going to be really, really solid in this tournament, having both those coverage moves, and that priority is going to be really nice as well. Now we need one more Pokemon, and I've put a lot of thought into this. I think that having the Skeledirge could be really, really awesome here. Being able to go Terra Normal, just really appreciating that, and just ignoring those stat changes is going to be good. I think that's going to be pretty decent against Golden Go, unless we get like tricked and get forced into something that we don't want to go use. There also might be some Flash Flare Ceruledge just to try to, or Flash Flare Chandelure just to kind of handle the move, the Torchon. So that could be a little bit threatening as well. I do love this Pokemon a lot. I do love Skeledirge. It's very, very good Pokemon. The other thing I was thinking is maybe a Ghost-type Resist Berry on the Spectrier, and then just trying to set up a Nasty Plot, and then maybe going Terra Dark from there and trying to sweep with him. I think that has some potential to be pretty good. The thing I like about the Ceruledge is you get that close combat coverage naturally. And I was actually kind of thinking maybe an Assault Vest with its natural special defense is going to be pretty good against some of these Pokemon too. So that if you go up against, like running it with Flash Flare to be able to handle the Skeledirge could be pretty good. Outside of other Pokemon that could handle the Skeledirge, I think that running Draco Meteor on the Dragapult here is pretty good because it's going to ignore those special attack drops that you're going to get on the Dragapult, and if you could do enough damage with Dragapult, that could be pretty threatening since Skeledirge is generally more physically defensive, although I think in this tournament we're going to see a lot more special defensive investment. So we have some options. I don't really want to run Golden Go for this team. I think you kind of have to play into that Terra type, and I don't think it's necessary for this. So we do want Focus Sash on a Pokemon. I'm thinking. Let's see here. Focus Sash on the Zoroark has the potential to be decent, but I think that I know what item I want to run on it. Is there a good Focus Sash Pokemon I want to use? A more offensive option. We have the Gengar. I think that Bayonet could also be fairly good. And then Ceruledge, being able to set up that Sword Stance and have that massive attack is also going to be pretty good if we want to run it that way. You know, I've been waffling with the Ceruledge. I do like the idea of Ceruledge being good with the Bitter Blade against the Golden Go. Let's start working on the moves, and then I'm going to come back to that last move slot here. Let's start figuring out like what we're going to be good against and what we need. So I definitely think for Dragapult, I'm going to start with Dragapult here, just because I know roughly what I want to do. I think let's use Infiltrator in case they're running screens. We might see some screens on a lot of these Pokemon. Not really worried about my stats being lowered. I also want to run the Choice Scarf here just to get that extra speed against other Dragapult. So I think that's going to be really good. I think for now, I'm not going to mess with the Terra types until the very end. I know for sure I want Draco Meteor. I think I'm going to run this as a mixed attacker. So I'm going to want Sucker Punch. And those last two moves are debatable. I think that because we're running the Choice Scarf here, I think that I'm going to go for Dragon Darts, just because that's going to be able to break through Pokemon with Focus Sash and do a decent bit of damage offensively with that 100% accuracy. That's going to be kind of nice. And then we have the option to, you know, I thought about Psychic Veins if they're running screens, but we have the Infiltrator ability already, and I think there's going to be other ways to play around that. So I think I'm going to go for a U-turn just to be able to have that pivot. And then, what is this? That's pretty much how I'd run this. So I don't want to go negative special defensive investment here, just because I think there's going to be a lot more special attackers in this metagame. So we're going to go with the negative defense. And Terra type, I'm really torn between going for like Terra Normal or going for Terra Dark and trying to boost our Sucker Punch. So I'm going to leave that alone for now, and we'll come back to that. Flutter Mane, I know I'm going to run Booster Energy as well. And there's some moves that I know I want. I want Calm Mind here to be able to set up. I know I'm going to want Moonblast as a good coverage move and to be able to handle those Ghost Dark type Pokemon. I think that Shadow Ball is also kind of a given here. Just because there's going to be so many Ghost type Pokemon, having that super effective coverage is going to be very good. And like I said, I want to be able to handle Golden Go pretty well. And so I think Mystical Fire is going to be the next move I want to use for my coverage. I'm debating what Terra type I want to do, but I think that just because of that Golden Go matchup, I'm actually going to go for the Terra Fire. I don't really care about a neutral typing. If I'm going up against a special attacker, I can still go Calm Mind for one turn. And with those stats, one Calm Mind alone is going to be enough to sweep most of these Pokemon, right? We're going to be very weak to Shadow Sneak. That's going to be the one thing, because we have such a low natural defense. And that's where I thought that Terra Normal could be a little bit better on this Pokemon. So, I can't decide. If we were up against a Golden Go, we could just go Mystical Fire, because we're going to know we're going to outspeed before it gets a hit off. But even with like a Terra Normal typing, you know, I think we're going to go Terra Normal here. Because we'll still be able to set up a Calm Mind. And if they go for the Good as Gold, or whatever, Make It Rain, or whatever, we should be able to take that fairly well with our natural special defense. So, and again, that's going to be pretty obvious. We're just going to run Timid here. I think for Mimikyu, I've been torn on how I want to run this. I could run this as a Sword Stance sweeper with a Shadow Sneak, or I could run it with the Hex, or not the Hex, the Curse. I think Curse can be kind of good, just because if they go all in on a wall, like if I have a Skeletor that starts to set up and it becomes a huge threat, I could at least throw down a Curse and either force a switch or be able to handle some Pokemon a little bit differently. Because you have that Disguise ability, you have the ability to drop a Curse and then heal up a little bit if I'm running like Leftovers. and then potentially drop another curse on another Pokemon, and then you have that priority in the back as a good option as well, which I think this Pokemon really appreciates. So I think I'm going to leave Mimikyu alone because I can't make up my mind. Zoroark is one that I want to run the Culver Berry on because I think being able to resist those Dark-type moves is going to be awesome on this. You're going to be immune to the Ghost-type moves anyway, so if you bait a Ghost-type move, that's going to be awesome. Then they know you're going to be Zoroark. Then they're going to try to go for a Dark-type move, and then if you're going to resist that, that's just going to give you one more turn of longevity to be able to resist some hits. I might be able to play around with this, the EV spread, after I run some calcs. I'm not going to do it in this video, just in case I need to live certain hits against certain threats for this tournament. But for now, I think I just want to run this. I think Physical's going to be a little bit better. I really want knockoff Pokemon, and so far it's the only Pokemon on our team that has access to the knockoff as far as I'm aware. I don't get access to knockoff, do you? No. Dragon Darts. So, yeah, I think that I want to run this Physical. I think Protect could also be really good, just if you're trying to bait out Terror types and see if they're going to go for certain moves. And I debated running Protect on Zoroark. I thought that could have been pretty good. But I don't know that that's necessarily the route I want to take with this Pokemon either. So, how do I want to run this guy? I think... Do I want to go Swords Dance with that speed? Do we get access to Sucker Punch too? That's something else I need to check. Sucker. You do not get access to the Sucker Punch, so it's just the Shadow Sneak, and then it's Natural Speed, beating Speed Tide again with Gengar and Frostlass and a few others. So, ooh, this is a tricky one. We know we want the knockoff. I'm just going to do that for now. And Shadow Sneak is another given for me. You do have access to some interesting options. Memento could be kind of cool to transition into a Pokemon that's going to set up and be pretty threatening here, so I do like the idea of the Memento. You know what? I think this is going to be our Swords Dance, knockoff, Shadow Sneak, and Memento. And we'll just leave it at that for now. Again, like I said, I'm probably going to run some calcs and then adjust that a little bit, give it a little bit more defensive investment, just to be able to live certain hits, even with the Culver Berry. Spiritomb. I think it's going to synergize really, really well with the Spiritomb. Being able to go Memento. If I can find a quick KO with this, by disguising myself as another Pokemon and then having that Culver Berry as that backup option, I think the Spiritomb is going to be able to come and set up and do some really, really nice things. I do have the access to the Swords Dance, don't I? No Swords Dance, okay. That changes things a little bit. How do I want to run this guy? What's your speed? So low? Yeah, I was thinking about running Thunder Wave, but I don't think it's going to be super good against this guy. Could run Pain Split just to get some health back. I think that's definitely a reasonable option. And Protect. Protect would be kind of cool too. You know what? I think I'm going to run Protect. Just be able to bait out some of those things, see if they're going to go Terra or not, and kind of adapt. We're going to have the Sucker Punch here, Shadow Sneak, and Pain Split. And then I'm debating how I want to run. Well, we have all priorities, so speed doesn't even matter, right? So do we want the Thunder Wave? Or do we want that berry that makes us resist fairy-type moves, since it's our only weakness. There's a lot of items we could run on this guy, actually. I think what I want to run... berry. We also could just run like a citrus berry or something like that, just to have a little bit more effective health. You know what? I know what I want to run. We're going to run the Custap berry, because if we get low, then we can use that Custap berry, use the Pain Split, and get caught back up, which would be pretty dirty. The only other thing I'm wondering is, instead of Pain Split, if we want to just use Curse and just have this thing be a death fodder and drop an annoying Curse on an opposing Pokemon. That could be a good option too. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'll work on the EV spread later, just because I'm going to play around with this a lot here. And then the Mimikyu, I think I am going to run it as the leftover set I was talking about here. Curse, Protect, Shadow Sneak. Do we get Knockoff? I don't think we do. Yeah, this is where this Pokemon gets a little bit tricky. There's a few different routes we could take, for sure. If they go Terra Normal, it would be nice to kind of hit something. But that's kind of where I'm thinking... Ooh. Like, Drain Punch could be kind of goofy. Drain Punch could be kind of goofy, for sure. I am wondering if we want to... See, the other thing we could do is run this like it's an offensive one. Just have the Swords Dance, Shadow Sneak, but then also have the Curse Protect, and like kind of run this both ways. Have a little bit of a hybrid Mimikyu. I think that could potentially be pretty good as well. We could run the Thunder Wave and just be kind of annoying to be able to pivot into other Pokemon. Just if we're gonna force a switch with the Curse, then we could throw down a Thunder Wave, and that could potentially be pretty good. What else do we have? I've seen the Fling, but we're not doing the Fling on him. I think what I want to do with Mimikyu, bulk up. Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, let's run it as a hybrid. And let's run it offensively here. I'm gonna go max speed again, just I'll be able to outspeed other Mimikyu. Now, taking a look at these Pokemon so far, I do not have another great option against the Skeledirge here. So I definitely think I want a Pokemon that can handle Skeledirge fairly well. I think that's leading me to want to use the Spectrier with this kind of goofy set I have in mind. So, ooh, Basculegion could be decent against the Skeledirge going in the back. But then we won't want to get burned either. We could run it with a Rossberry or like a Lumberry. That'd be kind of silly that way. But then we'd have to Terra with it too. So, yeah, let's do the Spectrier. Let's do the Spectrier and be fun. Spectrier. I don't exactly remember what the cat. Yeah, okay. I knew it started with a K. That berry. That's going to make us reduce super effective hits from ghost type moves. I think that's also going to synergize really well with the Memento. If we faint with the Memento, it allows us to set up with a Nasty Plot here. And I definitely think I want to go Terra Dark on this, just because I think that's going to be really good with those offensive options. We have the Shadow Ball. Now Grim Neigh. Special attack is raged by one stage if it KOs another Pokemon. I couldn't remember if it KOs another Pokemon or if it's only with a Ghost type move, so that's good. That's even better. Dark Pulse, and this last one I'm a little torn on. I kind of like the idea of using the Snarl against the Skeledirge here, just to kind of put some pressure on him. What's our... So 100 hit points is actually pretty solid with an 80 special defense. That's not bad on the special side, especially if we're going Terra Dark. I was debating between that or using the Draining Kiss as an option to get some coverage against like those Ghost Dark type Pokemon besides just Fluttermane. We have the Mimikyu to kind of threaten that though, which is also kind of nice. And being able to boost with Nasty Plot, this thing's going to get so strong anyway. Not too worried about what we're going to be running into. I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and just run the Snarl as well, just to be a little bit more annoying against the Skeledirge here. And I think that's going to be my team. So let's take a look at the Terra types here. I think for the Terra type for the Spirit Tomb, how do I want to do this? We're going to be weak to Fairy. I think going Terra Poison could be kind of good, just so that we're not going to get poisoned either. And then we can kind of resist those Fairy type moves too. So where is Poison? Fluttermane, we have set at normal. I think that's fine. I think for the Terra type for Dragapult, just because if we're not going to be... Ooh. Would be kind of nice to go boosted on that Sucker Punch, though. And then we're going to also resist Ghost type moves and other Dark type moves. I think... But the Terra Dragon could boost our Draco Meteor, which would be fairly decent. Then we could also boost Dragon Darts, too, which you've seen be fairly good in the past. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I'm probably gonna do some testing with this, and then I'll come back to that one. I'm gonna leave it as Dragon for now, just because boosting that Draco Meteor. I'm gonna run the Calc and see kind of how that does against the Skeledirge, just as another backup option to deal with it besides just the Spectrier here. The Mimikyu is another one that's gonna be kind of tricky. Do I want to go Ghost and boost the Shadow Sneak? I don't really think I'm gonna go Terra with this Pokemon, really, anyway. Going Terra Normal could be kind of funny, just because we could bait the normal type moves, but then that would mean that we can't go Curse either. So I think I'm going to leave this one as Ghost as well. And then for the Terra type for Zoroark, we're going to be weak to that normal typing, and we're running Knockoff, which I think is going to be a really good coverage move for us. So I think I'm actually going to go Terra Dark here, just to kind of get that resist against other Dark type Pokemon, and against a lot of those typings that we're going to run into anyway. And I think I'm going to call that quits for now. So that's kind of roughly what I'm thinking for the team. I might change this around a little bit, do some testing, put a little bit more thought into this, and yeah, it should be kind of interesting. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Good luck making your team out there for this tournament. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and thank you so much for watching. This is Gimme Ghoul Gamer out.